Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at $1,200 worth of Japanese glass. This is the Maven RS.1 2.5 to 15. Now, full disclosure on the Maven optic is that they did send this optic out to me for free, so I did not pay for this whatsoever. However, I've made the personal decision to send it back to them after this video is over, even though I think the scope is quite fantastic. On top of that, I do have an affiliate link for Maven. I believe I make 7% off of it if you choose to use it. I have not made a dime off of it. I don't care if I make a dime off of it, but you do need to know that it's there. Now, if you're not familiar with Maven, Maven is a DTC company, a direct to consumer, so they do not have any third-party distributors increasing the cost or anything like that. So they sell optics directly to you. Now, they were fairly hesitant to send me one of their optics because most of what they do is actually binoculars, monoculars, spotting scopes, rangefinders, and then a section of what they do is optics like the RS.1. Now, in their lineup, the RS.1 is the cheapest first focal plane optic that they offer at $1,200. They do have some second focal plane optics that are cheaper in the $500 to $700 range, but at $1,200, that is their starting point for the first focal plane options. The RS1 being sort of their entry-level first focal plane option, it is a trimmed down scope in terms of its feature set while still retaining excellent Japanese glass, some of the best Japanese glass on the market. In fact, so far to date, there's only one optic that I've looked through that looks better than this one. Now, getting into specifics on the RS1, this is of course a 2.5 to 15, which is a sweet spot in terms of magnification range. The two best options for anything under 1,000 yards, in my opinion, is 2.5 to 15 or 3 to 18. Those are fantastically versatile for just about anything, again, inside of 1,000 yards. You do have a close option if you need it to dial all the way back to 2.5 or 3, and of course all the way up to 15x magnification on the high end. It's very, very easy to spot targets and make hits out to extended ranges 7, 8, 900 or even 1,000 yards if you need to. Up front, we have a 44mm objective, a 30mm main tube, and an overall length of about 14 inches. Now, the weight comes in at only 24.5 ounces, which is pretty lightweight for the magnification range. You can, of course, find lighter scopes on the market, but for a 2.5 to 15, it's going to be on the lighter end of things. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that it does have a little bit trimmed down of a feature set, meaning that we do not have a illuminated reticle. That is foregone on this model. And of course, we have capped windage and elevation rather than oversized tactical turrets designed for dialing. Now, the RS.1 comes with two reticle options. One of them is pretty bad. It's the SHR reticle, I want to say. It's more of like a hunting style reticle, so it's very simple. It doesn't have all the drops and wind holds that you might want. And then they have the other option, which this one here has, which is going to be much more complex and much more usable for more real-world applications, let's say. Now, getting into controls, in the back, of course, we have our diopter for adjusting the reticle to your eyes. Everybody's eyes are a little bit different. I have 20/10 vision in my right eye, so my vision is pretty fantastic compared to the average person. So again, your eyes are going to be a little bit different, so you want to make sure that reticle is as crisp and clear as it can be for you. Now, moving forward from there, we have the magnification ring. Now, the magnification ring, it is a 180-degree throw. Very interestingly, on the Maven RS.1, is they chose to go with a incredibly aggressive knurling on it. It's this diamond pattern that is very reminiscent of a really good power bar or a deadlift bar, a specific deadlift bar. The texture on it is extremely aggressive. It will dig into your fingers as you're moving it. It is a very smooth throw as well. It's one of those really nice attention to detail things. Again, this is a $1,200 scope. Again, the knurling on it is very, very reminiscent of a good power bar or a deadlift bar or something similar to that. Now, it does have a little bit of a raised knob for a little bit more traction. It would be kind of nice with a little bit longer of a throw lever instead of the insanely aggressive texturing. However, the texturing is nice and it is a very smooth throw, but if you like a little bit larger of a throw lever, that's going to be a little bit missing. Now, moving along to our parallax adjustment, it starts all the way down at 10 yards, which is very nice if you're doing something like NRL 22, where you have a very, very tiny target up close. It is nice to have a parallax adjustment that goes all the way down to 10 yards. And then, of course, it goes all the way out to infinity. Again, Very, very smooth, very quality feeling. And again, there is no illumination on this reticle, so there is no battery tray or anything else hanging off the side, only your parallax. Now, the windage and elevation are both capped, of course. This is a MOA reticle, so the adjustments are going to be in MOA. The knurling on both caps is the same sort of very aggressive knurling that you're going to find on the magnification ring. Now, the adjustments on this are in quarter MOA, which is perfectly precise enough for me. Both windage and elevation are, of course, resettable if you did want to do that. As for me, I just zeroed them at 100 yards and then forgot about them and then utilized the reticle for all of my distance shooting, which actually worked out quite well. Now, getting into actually using the Maven RS.1, this is going to be another area where it does fantastic. At the low end, at 2.5 magnification, you have a extensive eye relief. Probably optimal is about 4 inches or so, which is very nice for this magnification range. Of course, as you increase the magnification to about 8, it stays pretty constant, maybe 3.5 to 4 inches, and then all the way up at the top end, it's still a very nice, forgiving 3.5 to 4 inches, one of the most forgiving eye reliefs that I've seen on a scope of this magnification range. Now, on top of just the eye relief being very good, the eye box, the up, down, left, and right, is also, again, very, very good. So it's an area where Maven did a really good job with the actual usability of the scope, having a good eye relief and good eye box. Now, comboing that with the field of view is rated at 41.5 feet field of view at 100 yards on 2.5x, which roughly extrapolates to about 105 feet field of view on a 1x setting on an LPVO, just for reference, which is firmly in the good category, though not exceptional by any means. Though I will say that either they're underreporting the field of view, or another company that we're talking about in just a minute is overreporting their field of view, because this does subjectively feel like it has a better field of view than other optics that say they have a larger one. Now, getting into the best thing about the Maven optic is that it has the best Japanese glass that I have ever seen. In fact, it is the second best scope that I've ever looked through. Now, that's a bit of an odd award to have, but you gotta remember the number one scope that I've ever looked through was a $4,000 ZCO scope that Gary lent me. Thank you very much for that. Let me do a review on that. And in second place is the $1,200 Maven RS.1. The colors look very good. Edge-to-edge clarity, excellent. The raw crispness of the image is fantastic. No chromatic aberration. Again, everything about the glass just looks very good. It almost has a brighter image than your naked eye. Of course, it doesn't actually. I think the light transmission is rated at about 89%, but just a fantastic looking image through the scope. Some of the best that I have ever seen. Again, keep in mind that this is going to compete with some much more expensive optics in terms of raw glass quality. And to compare it to another Japanese scope with a very similar feature set, very similar price tag as well, this is the Blackhound Optics Emerge 2-12 by 44, so same objective lens. This one here has a 34mm main tube versus a 30mm main tube. This is $1,300 versus, again, $1,200. Both of these are Japanese first focal plane optics, and the Blackhound optic does look good, but it looks far worse than the Maven RS.1. Again, I'm not an engineer when it comes to optics. I have no idea what makes them look good or bad. All I can tell you is that subjectively, with my eyes, the Maven RS.1 looks fantastic. And while we're on the comparison train, the Blackhound optic is about 29 ounces or so. It is a very heavy, tanky optic, whereas the Maven is, again, 24.5 with a wider magnification range. Now, I did mean to get to actual drop testing on this optic. However, I was a little busy this week, let's say. However, it did take a couple accidental drops off of the hood of my car, the trunk of my car, so on and so forth, and I never had to re-zero it. So while I didn't do my standard drop testing for an optic, it did seem to hold up fairly well and did last several thousand rounds of mixed ammunition. Now, getting into the last thing that we need to talk about on the Maven RS.1 is going to be the reticle. Now, specifically the MOA-2 reticle, as the other reticle, again, is much more simplistic and probably more suited to a hunting style application. However, in the MOA-2 reticle, we have subtensions, I believe, in 1 MOA hash marks, all the way out to 40 MOA. As well, we have 5 MOA hashes for our wind in a 5x5 grid. So it's kind of like a Christmas tree style reticle with a lot of open space. It's not quite a mill grid system that I've seen in other reticles that I do actually prefer. However, there is definitely enough information here to get you out on target easily. I have taken this optic on several different setups, I believe at least 4 different setups, out to 600 and 700 yards, 223, 556, 65 Creedmoor, and as you see it here, this is a 16-inch 6mm arc. So keep in mind that I did use the reticle exclusively for all my shooting, and it was, again, easy and intuitive to get out to distance. However, it's still not going to be my favorite style of reticle. So while it definitely is workable and usable, it's fairly simple to understand, it does all the things that you want it to do, it is usable, it's not going to have quite all of the features of like an ACSS reticle or have quite the detail of a full mil grid, like a 1x1 mil grid or something like that, which I do in general prefer. Now, there are a couple reasons that you would pick up this scope and 2 reasons that you would not. The first one of those reasons why you would not want to pick up this scope is if you need an illuminated reticle. If you need an illuminated reticle, this scope is automatically removed from your list because it just doesn't have one, so it's gone right there. Now, the next deal breaker for some people is going to be the reticle itself. If it's something that you just don't want to use, if you'd rather dial your windage and elevation, while that is something you can do on the RS.1, it's just not really its intended application with that capped windage and elevation. A lot of their other offerings have much larger tactical style turrets for that sort of thing, and again, they are going to be a little bit more expensive. Keep in mind that this is the entry level in their first focal plane line of scopes. So again, if the reticle is something that you can use and it looks very intuitive and natural for you or something that you're used to, then it's going to be all good. However, if you'd rather dial or go with a different reticle entirely, something with a little bit more detail, auto ranging features, so on and so forth, then it's going to be a deal breaker for this scope. Now, why would you pick up something like this? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think currently I have 4 $1,000 scopes on hand, right in that $1,000 to $1,200 price range, and this is the best looking one by far. It beats all of them. There's no competition in the Maven RS.1. If you're looking for a scope in that $1,000 to $1,200 price range and looking for the best glass possible, this absolutely does that, and it also does that with a fantastic magnification range, again 2.5 to 15, first focal plane reticle, fantastic glass, very usable, eye relief, eye box, field of view, all of that sort of stuff is very good. And again, total weight of only 24.5 ounces, which when compared to its magnification range is actually pretty good. So it is definitely not a perfect scope by any means, just by its nature of having a reduced feature set, meaning that it is going to be less appealing to a lot of people just for that. However, if you're looking for the best Japanese glass you can get for $1,200, I think that the Maven RS.1 is possibly that. Now, when it comes to me personally, with a lot of the other scopes that I've been using, the Maven RS1, even if it does have a reduced feature set compared to some of those other optics, is my favorite to use just because of how much better the glass quality is, even in scopes in its same price range. The Maven RS1 just looks so much better than some of those other scopes that I tend to prefer it even with its reduced feature set. But at the end of the day, the Maven RS.1 2.5 to 15 by 44 first focal plane optic is going to be an exceptional scope, if a little bit simple and possibly a little too simple for some people. But with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Maven RS.1 in the comments down below. If there's other scopes in that same genre that I should check out, even from Maven, maybe I can get them to send me out one of their higher end scopes as well that has a more full feature set. We can see if we can do something like that. But once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. God bless.